This is a joint reporting effort by the New York Times and PBS Frontline.
A debit card, I would have to say, is at least 75% of my daily purchases.
Adam Rainey is like a lot of people these days, preferring to spend within his means, reaching for his debit card over a credit card. But lately, he's had misgivings about debit cards.
On at least 13 occasions, it appears I was charged an overdraft fee of at least $25, totaling more than $300, about $325. Very busy, I travel a lot for work, and I'm trying to be much better about this.
One day last October, after Mr. Rainey made a number of purchases, the Library of Congress Federal Credit Union charged him over $100 in so-called member privilege overdraft fees.
It seems an easy way for a bank to make several $100s off one customer, and if you multiply that by hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of customers, that's a lot of money banks are making off of what seems to be legalized robbery.
Mr. Rainey's situation is not unique. He's one of millions of customers who have had to pay overdraft fees on their checking accounts for a service they never asked for. As lawmakers crack down on abusive credit card practices, banks are increasingly reliant on debit card overdraft fees for revenue.
Debit or credit?
Debit?
One of the reasons that people suggest you use a debit card is because it only allows you to spend the money you have in your account. Well, in actuality, now banks will let you overspend on your debit card, and in a way that's much, much more expensive than almost any credit card on the market.
This year, banks will make over $27 billion on overdraft fees from customers who overspent their checking accounts.
I was shocked. I was just mortified to be paying so much in bank fees.
Josette Wormuth is a high school teacher in San Francisco who banks with Washington Mutual, now owned by Chase.
1 month I didn't get the deposit from my tenant. She normally makes a deposit automatically, and I didn't realize it. I spent around $365 in overdraft fees.
Debit or credit?
Debit. On one occasion I bought a small pizza for $7 and ended up getting charged a $33 fee, so it ended up being a $40 pizza. Then I went and I got gas, got charged a fee, so it was twice as much as what I thought I had spent.
The average debit card purchase is about $20, much less than with credit cards, but the cost of overspending can be significantly higher. A recent federal study found that a customer charged a $27 fee on a $20 debit overdraft, who then paid it off in 2 weeks, was effectively charged an annual percentage rate of 3,520%. Making matters worse, many customers like Ms. Wormuth are told by their bank that they cannot opt out of overdraft services.
Overdraft charges. If I'm using an ATM card and I don't have the funds, I've asked them to decline it several times, and they've said no.
Financial Services Roundtable represents Chase and many of the major banks in Washington.
To some degree, there's a shared responsibility here between the bank and the customer. The bank has the duty to provide you goods and services, and they should be allowed to charge a fee for goods and services. At the same time, everyone should understand the balance, how much they have in their account, and manage their funds well to avoid those fees.
Are you paying debit or credit?
Debit?
But avoiding overdrafts has become increasingly difficult. Some large banks will manipulate the sequence of customer transactions to draw more overdraft fees. This is how it works. Take Joe. Joe has $100 in his checking account. He buys breakfast on his way to work, paying for it with his debit card. Joe next fills up his gas tank. Later, he buys lunch, and then an afternoon cup of coffee. Finally, on his way home, he stops at the supermarket to buy groceries. The last purchase leaves Joe's account overdrawn by $15. But rather than charge him one overdraft fee, his bank rearranges his purchases from highest to lowest and charges him 3 overdraft fees. By clearing the highest purchases first, banks are able to get to the overdraft quicker, thereby maximizing profits.
Customers have told us we want you to clear our highest purchases first. Your mortgage check, your car payment, your student loan versus the $3 cup of coffee. And so by structuring it that way, we are setting up the system to help prevent or reduce the opportunity or the chance that you will go over your account.
But I guess I feel like this high to low argument seems somewhat dubious again, because whether it's paid chronologically or whether it's paid high to low, if you have this overdraft protection, it's going to be paid anyway.
Yeah, but,
so it strikes me as a way to possibly maximize the overdraft fees.
Well, we have to structure it somehow. Let's start there. So there is debate about should it be high to low, should it be first in, first out, should it be small to high.
Right.
And our customers have said, we want you to pay the high to low.
Such may be the case for some customers, but during tough economic times, overdraft fees have the most damaging effect on a growing number of people living paycheck to paycheck.
Our data says about 15% of people who overdraft pay more than 70% of the fees. Overdraft is your classic case of high-cost, short-term credit that the credit ends up requiring you to take out more credit.
The Federal Reserve is considering a rule that would enable customers to decline overdraft services on their accounts, but some lawmakers say it won't be enough.
Sometimes a cup of coffee can end up costing $35. It's a service that banks give that is anything but a service.
Or not, they want to opt in to an overdraft protection.
Representative Carolyn Maloney, a Democrat from New York, knows how sacred overdraft fees are to banks. Last May, she tried but failed to attach an overdraft bill to the popular credit card Bill of Rights.
During a time when we are in a credit crisis, we are helping the financial institutions. We should also help the consumers. That is what
we were getting close to passing it, and adding another bill or attaching another bill would have pulled it down, possibly defeated it.
She plans to reintroduce the overdraft bill in the coming months.
At the point of sale, people would be notified that they are overdrawing their account and be able to make a decision whether or not they wanted to pay this additional fee for this service.
But for the time being, customers like Adam Rainey may be left haggling with their banks.
But then you're capitalizing on their hold.
Unbeknownst to him at the time, a merchant had put a hold on his account, which triggered a cascade of overdraft fees, even though he had a positive balance.
No, but it just seems, put yourself in my shoes, it seems extremely unfair and un-American to charge someone, but I don't need the loan, I had the money in the bank. I just got off the phone with the customer service representative who put me on with a manager, and she said sometimes you're charged an overdraft fee even when you have money in the account if the merchant has put a greater hold than the purchase was. I'll eventually be charged the correct amount, but that the bank is temporarily giving them the freedom to say they may charge me more.
After initially denying his request, Mr. Rainey's credit union agreed to return him $125 and allow him to opt out of overdraft services.
The irony is, the idea of me joining a credit union was to have fewer fees, fewer instances where I felt I was being ripped off. And I have to say, being charged $325 over the course of a year leaves a bad taste in your mouth.